Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're going to be talking about Crits Techies. This was a last pick Techies between EG and Quincy Crew, arguably two of the best three teams in North America, and I wanted to look at what makes this hero potentially one of the better position 4s of the current meta. It's definitely a hero I expect to see pop up a lot more. Now, you might be wondering, oh Speed, why are you talking about a hero with a mediocre win rate? Right, well I think Techies has the potential to be a very, very dominant hero, even in your pubs. Right? I think this is a hero that is a little bit difficult to play. I think it's actually somewhat mechanically difficult, but if you get down the mechanics and you take a little bit of time to actually learn the hero, it's actually one of the most dominant heroes in the game. I believe that. Before we get into today's video, I want to quickly tell you about today's sponsor, which is Manscaped. They were kind enough to send me some free stuff. I highly recommend it to you guys as well. The first thing is the Manscaped lawnmower. It's rechargeable, it works in the shower. You can use it to shave your balls. It's extremely easy to use. I've had limited problems with it, so I can't recommend it enough. The next thing is the shampoo and conditioner and the body wash. These I'm using literally every single day. They smell very nice. Like for the majority of my life, and probably for a lot of you guys, you kind of just smell like a teenage boy. You know what I mean? It's like the Axe body wash that you just smell all over your gym's locker room. Get some stuff that actually smells nice. My girlfriend, yes, I actually have. You guys might not believe it. I have a girlfriend. She says it smells extremely nice. I fully agree. I love the way it smells. Gives me some confidence as well. So if you're interested in buying these products, use the link down below to go check it out. And if you use code SPEED while checking out, you can get 20% off and free shipping. And I'll see you guys there. 53 base damage is quite high, honestly, for 700 attack range, so you're one of the best harassing heroes in the game. You have 5 base armor, which is nutty high. Then you have 300 movement speed, a very solid number. In fact, so high, 300 is high enough to the point where Crit didn't even go boots. He went Veil over boots. So we'll see that come into play as well. And then you have a low cooldown nuke in the laning stage that actually doubles at level 3. So you have a hard level 3 spike. You also spike at level 2. You basically can do, 400 damage level 2. All in all, this hero is just good. It's just a good hero. It even has a stun when you buy the shard, which is a must buy, and we'll talk about that as well. In terms of starting items, he's going to opt for a lot of regen. I recommend you do the exact same thing. I think there's no way to play Techies right now besides basically just buying a lot of regen and auto-attacking. That's your whole goal in the laning stage. Use your Q as a slow, so if you don't know, you throw the sticky bomb in the air, and then it slows for a pretty decent amount of time, right? Because it latches onto them and slows them for the entirety of the duration, and then when it explodes, it slows again as well. So when it latches onto them, it's a 25% slow at level 1 and then 15% for another 2 seconds afterwards as well. So obviously this is a very good ability to track people down and auto attack them. As you'll see, Crit throughout the lane is not going to spam the spell, but in general, the main times in which he's going to use the sticky bomb is when it can be followed up by auto attacks. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be what it is. And yeah, that's the majority of the laning stage. However, take a look at this, right? He's going to be able to poke UR from the side, basically without pulling creep aggro for the first few autos, and just decimating the Luna's HP. I'm not really over-exaggerating here. In the matter of, 10-15 seconds? He's done nearly half of UR's HP just from auto attacks. If Ponlo even remotely overextends, he'll destroy him as well, and it's kind of a rinse-repeat from there. Now, your first major spike is level 3, hands down. The slow is upgraded quite significantly on the explosion and before the explosion, a 10% increase at both, so it's a much better disable. And on top of that, it doubles in damage, right? And it's not that intensive of a mana spell. 115 for a hero with very high int like Techies is not too bad, so it's a very, very spammable ability. And you'll see Crit nearly takes down Ponlo. And basically, anytime a position 5 walks even relatively out of position, you should hit them 1 or 2 times, wait for them to cast a spell or go for an auto attack, and use that opportunity to set up for a sticky bomb and then, a bunch of auto attacks to follow. So let's quickly now skip ahead of the laning stage and move on to the 8-minute mark. Coming up to here, we're going to see him sat mid for the next few minutes, and you want to do this every game as Techies. Techies is one of the most level-dependent position 4s in the game. Naturally, this is just one of those heroes where I wouldn't say necessarily that you don't spike at 6. You obviously do with the proximity mines. It's just a hero that you really want to get to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, because a lot of heroes you can kind of be happy at level 7, right? You hit your spike and you kind of go from there, right? For instance, something like Hoodwink, right? Hoodwink is a hero that can build up a lot of levels and can scale, but once she hits level 7, she wants to get extremely active because, you have a very, very easy way to just explode people in setup. Techies is honestly very good at level 6 as well. I wouldn't say nearly as good as Hoodwink for that matter, but you can see he is going to look to set up for kills. The only thing you have to keep in mind is your hero really needs to lead with his Q in the majority of these early game team fights. That is all of the execution. You just got to make sure you get good at hitting this Q, and then that will set up for the blast off. On top of that, in early game team fights, the majority of your impact is going to be you getting off 1 to 3 usages of your sticky bomb and then a solid value on the blast off. However, try not to commit too early to the blast off. Honestly, even here, I was a little bit surprised to see him do that. I guess it was to prevent the potential stun onto the DP to get Jerax off of, himself, but they end up getting another sticky bomb which slowed Quinn again, and that sets up for the Timber spells, and they take him out. From there, I hate to break it to you guys, but he just keeps sapping mid. You might be wondering, what do I do if my mid laner doesn't give me mid? Well, the first thing I would say is, number one, often mid laners do rotate out of mid, and you should always take that time to soak mid. I would put a much heavier emphasis on taking XP mid than going for kills. So if you're wondering, if I have the opportunity to dive a tower top or sap mid XP for a couple waves, I would absolutely take the mid XP in the majority of scenarios. There's always exceptions in Dota, but for the most part, you want to look for the mid XP, hit this level 6 timing. We'll see that come into play here. Goes for the Q. Once again, the Q is going to set up for the blast off. I think he ends up not going for it here. I guess just trying to save his HP. He has no good way to regen it, so that makes sense. And then he's going to head back towards the mid lane. So the next thing that Techies is really good at is actually playing as somewhat of a save support. You have some of the biggest counter initiation cast range in the game, so we'll see in this clip here, Crit's going to shift to the bottom wave. Abed is clearly scared about pushing out this bot wave. Why? His team is currently playing the top side of the map, so he knows that there's a decent chance Quincy Crew is out here bottom. So what does Crit do? He's going to sit behind, wait for the initiation, and his blast off here is going to prevent any follow-up epicenter, even a dragon form. Quinn doesn't have it, but whatever there is to prevent, you can prevent. And that's exactly what we see. The Sand King cannot channel epi, which is a massive deal here, and they easily take them both out. So just an easy use of the blast off can set up for big things. So the next thing to note about Techies is, well, there's one of two things I would say. In general, you want to play with a stun. The reason why is it's somewhat easy to miss your spells, right? Especially your proximity mines. This is your best spell in terms of DPS. They're, 400 damage? It's ridiculous. You have potentially a 1200 damage nuke at level 6. The issue is whether or not you can actually hit them with the bombs. However, any stun easily allows you to hit the bombs, right? That's one thing you have to keep in mind. It's very easy to get them off. So there's two things you need to do as Techies. Number one, play with stuns. So in this game, what is this major stun? That's Storm Spirit. However, Storm is currently farming, so that's not an option. And so the other option is playing on a ward. Playing on wards are good as well, because as long as you see the enemy and they don't see you, you can often set up with a blast off, follow up with a bomb, and go for a kill. Just once again, keep in mind the red bombs should basically be the last thing you do. Let's quickly take a look at the exact execution of Crit onto this kill for the Luna. Leads with the blast off. Often you won't do this. I think in this case, he was a little bit afraid of missing the Q, right? Maybe if Luna sees that the camp is not alive, she will back off, which is exactly what happens. Then as she's backing off, he goes for the Q, that lands, it slows, sets up for the proximity mine, and they take her out. A very, very significant amount of damage. One thing to note as well is that he took Reactive Taser at level 8. If you don't know what this ability does, it gives you movement speed for a very long period of time. It's actually kind of an insane ability. For only 57 mana, well 60, it gives the ability to have extra movement speed, and if you get attacked, it disarms for 2.4 seconds, and then once it ends, it disarms in an area. So it's very good to essentially use after you blast off. The idea is you blast off in, you throw in your sticky bomb, or vice versa, depending on the vision, right? Then you put down your proximity mine, and you use your disarm to try to disengage, and then you rinse repeat after, whatever amount of time it takes for blast off to come up again. Next, let's talk about item build and then general talents. So in this game, he goes for a Null into Veil, which is a great set of items. You need the mana desperately from both of these items, so I love this. Also, I'm a huge fan of Veil in general. I think the item is pretty under-purchased. It increases enemy heroes to take 18% increased spell damage. That is a wildly high number for an item that costs, $16.50? Costs $15.25, even less than I said. So this is an item I think is wildly underrated right now. Obviously very good on Techies, a hero with, you know, a ton of spell damage. And a game like this, you might be like, oh, it's not good with Timber because he's pure damage. The thing is, Veil amps all types of spell damage now. It's just from spells. A lot of people don't know this. They think it amps magical. It just amps spells. So it's really good with Exorcism. It's really good with, you know, Chakram and Timber Chain and Whirling Death. And yeah, that's why you might be like, oh, it's bad this game, but in reality, it's actually extremely good. All right, next let's get into what I would argue is the biggest spike on Techies. This is when your hero can solo kill supports and becomes a real setup hero. You go from a follow-up damage hero to the setup hero, and that is your Shard, which I recommend you buy immediately after your Veil. I can even understand why Crit doesn't go boots this game, because he highly values these timings. I will say I think you probably should go boots after the Knolls, or after the Knoll and then like a Bassi, but he decides not to. Techies is a 300 movement speed hero. You do have reactive taser for some movement speed, so maybe he just forgot boots. Honestly, it's hard to know, but either way, goes for the blast off. And if you don't know what the Shard does, it increases the cast range of blast off by 300, and it applies a 1.75 second stun to the affected enemies. So it's a huge stun, right? 1.75 seconds on, what is it? What is the average cast range of blast off? It's wildly high, right? If we look at it here, it's wildly high. And with the Shard, I mean, there's no way you see this coming. It's nearly out of certain wards ranges, right? And it also gets amped by Aether Lens if you end up going that item later on to the game. But Initiation onto Quinn, sets up with the Veil, right? So this is the combo. He does it very quickly. It's a lot of buttons to click, but you lead in with the blast off, you click your Veil. After the Veil, you want to put down bombs. This is very important. When you have Shard, right? When you have Shard, you want to put down the bombs during the stun duration so they explode before they can be disarmed. And optimally, you put the bombs on the left and right of the hero. The reason why is if you put it directly on the hero, kind of like Crit does here, which I would argue is somewhat of a mistake, you can't put down another bomb in the nearby vicinity, because how the bombs work is you cannot stack them on top of each other. As a result, you have to spread them around the hero. Maybe he just felt like he was too low on mana. He did have a stick, so he probably could have. But once again, you blast off, you pop your Veil, you pop your proximity mines, then you go for the sticky bomb. When you don't have Shard, you should lead with sticky bomb so that you can use the slow as a setup for proximity mines. And yeah, they just explode the Dragonite. I mean, isn't that crazy? Is an 1800 HP hero just getting ripped apart. And I would say that's in large part due to the Veil. Another thing that I honestly think is pretty crazy about Techies as a hero is that when you hit someone with a proximity mine, it reduces their magic resistance. So that's why it's so crazy with Veil. If you hit someone with a mine and you amp them with Veil, they just take like 30% extra magical damage. Right? That is a wildly high number, right? That's a wildly high number. I don't know exactly how the stacking works with proximity mines, but I would imagine the more you hit, the more damage they actually do. And that is why when you have these follow-up heroes such as the Timbers and the Sand Kings with Techies, which is in general what I recommend picking, these heroes with a little bit of gap close, you know, some way to essentially get on top of whoever Techies initiates on, are best, especially if they do a lot of magical damage. So your Sand Kings, Primal Beast, Timber Saw are all very good examples. But as we'll see in this team fight here, oh my god, the initiation from Crit. And this is the thing about this hero. If you can have anyone bait, right? You don't really want to go in first if you don't have to. If you can have anyone bait and you can follow up the initiation, your hero just owns, right? As we're going to see, 2-man blast off from Crit here. He waits to make sure that they commit on the DP. 2-man stun into the bomb. Once again, I do think he could maximize the damage by putting the bombs around them rather than directly on top of them. That is something I think he can improve slightly. But at the end of the day, a huge initiation. I almost want to say basically solo kills the Sand King and essentially wins the fight for his team. And that is the impact of Techies. There's not a lot of supports that can do 1500 magical damage and initiate a fight with a practically 2-second stun. And that is the potential of this hero and why you have to buy the Shard. One thing that you can do with Techies as well that I think Crit doesn't really abuse very much or well this game, or something that maybe he's not even thinking about, that he could even implement into his own gameplay, is using bombs as a way to break smoke ganks and way to break ganks in general. Something that's cool about bombs is they obviously hit people who are smoked, right? You can't just walk over a bomb. And as a result, if you think the enemy team is going to contest, let's say a Roshan with a smoke gank, you just bomb the hills. You're always going to know where they're coming from, right? That's an incredible piece of utility. Also, just during any stage of the game, even if it's outside of smokes, you can just throw casual bombs down on hills to just read any gank, right? Let's say your offlaner wants to farm this camp and this camp. Throw down a bomb here, throw down a bomb here. They're completely protected. They're gonna know if a gank is coming. And that is why I think this hero is legitimately potentially top tier, because it has all of these options, right? It's a vision hero, it's an initiator, it's a good laner. I don't think there is much that Techies doesn't do. It's just kind of hard to play, and it does require a bit of space in the early game to get it online. It also requires, I would argue, a little bit of farm. I mean, he hasn't taken that much farm, but a little bit of farm to make sure you have mana throughout the game. But in general, I do believe that we're going to see a lot more Techies as time goes on, as I think the hero is pretty top tier. The next thing to note is BKB timing fights. We're going to see an example here from this team fight where Quincy Crew finally has some BKBs. There's a BKB on Luna, and I think, was that it? Okay, there actually is only a BKB on Luna, but anytime BKBs come out, just have patience. It's one of those things where in Dota, it's very hard to just kind of chill, but one of the worst things you can do is blast off just because you feel like you're not doing anything. You're much better off not doing anything and waiting for a good opportunity than chucking your body in and just suiciding, right? Because this is probably a big reason why Techies has not that great of a win rate, even when I think the hero's really good. Players will kind of just instantly go in rather than having patience. For instance, here, fight breaks out, he's gonna throw a sticky bomb. It's a 6-second cooldown, right? It literally is such a low cooldown for a pretty high value spell, and he's chilling, right? He's not gonna go on this DK because he's already dead. He's not gonna go on Yuar because he's BKB'd. So he's like, okay, there's no target, right? Just doesn't go in. Feel free to have this patience. Look at his positioning too. Just kind of chilling in the back, not overextending. Yeah, he's gonna shift up. When his team moves to here, he'll move to here. He's mirroring his team's movement, looking for initiation, looking for an opportunity to initiate. Doesn't find one, that's totally fine. You don't need to go in always. And yeah, they win the fight without him. On top of that, another thing to note, proximity mines work on buildings. So do I recommend doing this? It's honestly a little bit underwhelming, but it is pretty good against racks because you can hit 2 of them at the same time. All right, next up, let's talk about talents. I think at level 10, proximity mines cooldown is no question. It's just 10 times better in my opinion. At level 15, the blast off damage is generally better. Mana regen is obviously pretty good. If you're doing a lot of split pushing for one reason or another, you can take mana regen, but I think the blast off damage is just better. You want to make sure you're winning team fights. At level 20, I have seen both of these actually do well, so it's a bit tough for me. I'm personally a bigger fan of the blast off cooldown and then going for a 4-staff. Basically, I like the concept of going in and out as Techies, and you can do that if you take blast off cooldown and go 4-staff. So that's something to keep in mind. If your team needs you to be more of an initiator or they lack stuns, then you can go that route. If they don't, then obviously you can go for the sticky bomb latch damage. And level 25, most games just take proximity, activation delay. Damage, it's a bit of a meme. I would basically never take the damage. I think in games where you're scaling, you should just go like E-Blade Hex and solo kill supports. It's much better. But all right, that's gonna be about the end of today's video. We'll quickly look at one more team fight as he goes on a Quinn here. Once again, you gotta keep track of BKBs. This is a good potential 2-man blast off. I even think he's a little bit slow here. Anytime you have an opportunity for a 2-man blast off, you should go for it. Ends up actually missing onto the Sand King. However, the silence radius is quite huge. I believe the stun radius is a little bit lower than the silence radius. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah. This hero is good. I recommend you guys just try it in your pubs. You're going to notice it's a really, really good laner. However, it does take practice mechanically. So I beg you, do not give up on this hero after 1 or 2 games. You got to give it a try for 3 to 5 games. Get down the mechanical skill, and you'll really start to believe in Techies as a hero. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.